Hello and welcome again to yet another CircusTalk.com discussion panel. I am your host, Craig Quat, and in today's conversation, we will be exploring the realities of what it is like to live and work on the frontiers of social circus practice today. I would like to start by acknowledging that this panel discussion is being hosted on the unceded indigenous lands of the Mapuche, who we recognize as being the rightful custodians of the lands and waters on which I am broadcasting to you from today, which is somewhere in the middle of Patagonia. Today's discussion is brought to you by Circus Talk, the independent online career and casting market place for circus and performing arts. Circus Talk's mission is to create a level of playing field where individuals and communities can grow and succeed, and where circus is recognized as a practice as well as an art form and becomes an important driver of innovation and reimagination within the performing arts. Today's discussion is titled Bring Your Social Circus to Work Day, and it will be taking a very practical look at what it is like to live and work in social circus development today. Joining me for this conversation are Dr. Kate Riegel Van West, who completed her PhD in the effects of poi on physical and cognitive function at the University of Auckland, and is the founder of Spin Poi, a social enterprise dedicated to working with poi as a therapeutic tool to improve health and well-being for all ages and ability. We also have Adam Woolley, who is a circus coach, teacher, trainer, and arts advocate based in Philadelphia, USA, who's currently immersed in getting his master's degree, researching circus arts implementations in public schools. Welcome. And we have Jamie Moore from the United Kingdom, who is the director of Sticklands and manager of Performers Without Borders, currently specializing in delivering accessible circus projects around the UK and internationally. He also develops accessible circus equipment and runs projects that gather useful quantitative data for the social circus industry. Welcome. Before we get started with our conversation, I would like to take a moment for everyone who is here to introduce themselves by name, share their pronouns, and give an audio description of their appearance for those who are listening without vision. I will go first. Hello, my name is Craig. My pronouns are him or other, he, him, or other. And I have green eyes, brown hair that comes down to about below my ears. Sitting in front of a light brown wall. I have a button-up t-shirt on with the first two buttons undone, and I'm a little bit rough shaven. Kate.
Kia ora. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate. Pronouns are she, her. I have blondish, brownish hair that's a little bit disheveled, and it normally is. I'm wearing like a burgundy t-shirt. I'm here in my bedroom/office with the lovely light blue closet doors behind me, which I painted myself.
And Adam, you want to jump in? Microphone.
I'm going to forget that. Hi, my name is Adam. I use he, him, or other pronouns. My hair is light brown. My eyes are blue. I'm in my living room with a very colorful painting behind me, and I'm wearing a galaxy scarf.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Moore. I'm talking to you from the UK. I'm currently sat in our church where we can practice circus all the time. We're not religious. A little bit of an audio description for myself. I have sort of olive-colored skin, long, curly black hair, a really thick, curly beard. You can find my hair all around the house, wherever you look. I generally always have a smile on my face, but look very, very, very tired. I promise I'm here with a smile on my face for you all.
Thanks, everyone, for those visual introductions or those audio descriptions of yourselves. We're going to jump right into this conversation and the purpose of today's talk, which is to give a sense to people who are curious or interested in working as social circus practitioners, what that career field is like. What are some of the challenges that are faced by this career field? What are the things that motivate us to do this? So it's basically like a career day experience. We have some questions about we prepared as a group that we think a lot of people ask us already. So hopefully, by listening to this conversation, you'll learn a lot of things, a lot of questions you already have. We're going to start to get to know everyone by doing sort of a quick round, fun, quick answer questions. I think we picked the order is going to be Jamie, Kate, and then Adam, right? Is the rotation. And we're just going to get started with some icebreaker questions. So first one, Jamie starting off, favorite color?
Fuchsia, because we make it up in our head. It doesn't exist. Our minds decide what fuchsia is. Look it up.
Great. Adam, favorite color?
Is it me or is it Kate?
I'm sorry, Kate. Sorry, Kate.
It's me. I don't have a favorite color, but I like the way colors look in relation to each other because it makes them change.
I'm going to go with starlight.
Nice. And what about
Say
favorite? What about favorite foods?
Oh, my favorite food, without a doubt, is focaccia. I just love to bake a focaccia. The other day, I woke up at 2 a.m. to bake my focaccia, so it was ready in time. And then went back to sleep. But when I woke up, oh my gosh, focaccia.
It's focaccia dedication. Mine used to be mac and cheese. I'm vegan now, so it makes it a little more complex, but still holds up. It's just harder to make it good.
I always said ice cream until one year in summer camp, I do this question as an icebreaker, and a 9-year-old said cheese. And I went, oh, cheese? What a great answer. Cheese is my favorite food. Cheese makes everything better and nothing worse. So, cheese.
But I think it's hard to choose between cheese and ice cream. Next.
Yeah, no, hard choice.
Question.
Hard choice.
Any superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, the power to manipulate odds. Like, what are the odds of me getting an orange right now? 100%.
I think you're well on your way to having that power.
I don't know. I don't like this question. I didn't think about it ahead of time. I mean, like flying would be cool. Everyone says that. It's not very original. Can I just pass?
Yeah, sure. Pass.
Cool.
I was 100% super enthusiastically gonna say flying, and now I feel weird about that. Flying, absolutely flying, or teleporting, flying or teleporting, but probably flying. It seems like so much fun. I'm gonna be super jazzed about it.
Let's let's maybe try something a little bit more neutral. What types of music have you been listening to lately?
Minimalistic, Balkan-inspired jazz tech house. Pretty exclusively.
That's very specific. I'm in the more like indie gentle guitar, like maybe I'm very sad, but there's a hint of like inspirational undertones. The Paper Kites 1975 dough. I'm into it lately.
Pre-COVID, I listened to just lots of Broadway. And post-COVID, I almost exclusively listen to Brazilian lo-fi hip-hop 24/7, because it just is the thing that's keeping me sane since COVID.
Lo-fi anything is where I'm at. It's like all the time. Great. How about some of your inspirations in life? Biggest or just inspirations could be books, music, videos, movies, people.
It's a really like corny answer, but honestly, the people that I work with, the people that I get to see the benefits of our work with, and like I cry so often after a really good workshop where people have said nice things and I've seen improvements in them. That's my inspiration.
I would say vulnerable people who are making. Can we swear in this? Who are making stuff happen. Vulnerable people who are making stuff happen in the world. And something more specific, a book that I read recently, The Book of Joy by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. That's kind of become my new Bible at the moment. It's great.
God, this is just such a hard question for me. I don't know, man. I have had a lot of really inspiring teachers. There's this one teacher I had in high school. His name was Bob Moyer, who really changed my life. I had another teacher, Susan Main, who really changed my life. I love writers. Some of my favorite writers are Antonin Artaud and some of his writings about performance and what role performance plays in community. I also really love Karl Marx and the things that he wrote, and a few other kind of philosophers and things like that. But it's hard to pick just one, man.
Cool. I think that's good for quickfire. I think we got warmed up and got a sense of the personalities that are here and that we're going to have this conversation with. We're going to go into the career day questions now, and you're encouraged to just answer them naturally, how you feel, because we want to know what it's really like. We don't want to hear the thing we're supposed to promote. We have a lot of podcast panels now where we've all of us, the four of us, have had opportunities to blow that trumpet. And I want this to be an opportunity for us to show more the people behind the scenes, right? So to begin with, curiosity, what made you want to start to do circus, or how did you find out about circus? What brought you here?
Cool. Yeah, so I was studying performing arts at a college in a pretty rundown town in England, and I saw somebody swinging something that looked like socks around in a park. That was when I was 16. I'm 34 now. That was the start of a long journey, but I probably didn't actually consider it as a career until I was like, "Hey, Mom, I'm not really sure what I want to do with my life." And she was like, "Well, you're pretty good at that old poi thing that you practice outside in the garden. Why don't you do something with that?" And well, things went from there. That's the short answer. There's a much longer one, but I guess you don't really need it. That's how I got started. I saw it in the park and just sort of dedicating myself to taking a lot of training and throwing myself at opportunities and pushing my way into the door.
I got started because there was a youth circus at my school. I'm calling from New Zealand at the moment, but I grew up in a place called Normal, Illinois, where an amazing teacher named Dr. Romance, it sounds so crazy, a teacher named Dr. Romance started a youth circus program at the laboratory school that I went to as a kid. I was enamored with it even when I was really young, like too young to join. And I joined as soon as I could, and I just felt so at home because I was very shy. I hated competing, but I loved being active. So circus was like the perfect thing for me because nobody was winning or losing. Everyone was just doing their thing and being themselves, and they could be changing themselves, however they felt that day. And it just felt awesome to me. So I just poured myself into circus and thought I was going to I don't know, be in Cirque du Soleil or something, but I've, followed some different streams from there, but still in the circus world.
I grew up as kind of like Kate a bit. Like I was a theater kid who also really loved martial arts. Martial arts was my thing when I was a kid. And so I went to theater school and started reading and studying kind of like what is the role of performance in society today, and ended up writing a paper where I talked about cultural hierarchy and why specifically circus and professional wrestling weren't considered art. Because I was looking at how many people watch different kinds of performance, and the most people watch rock concerts, professional wrestling, and circus, as it turns out. So then I started watching circus, and this was the early aughts, and I saw Cirque du Soleil and I saw Quidam, and my brain exploded. I think there are so many people in my generation who were coming of age in the early aughts who saw those early Cirque shows, and just my mind exploded. My jaw was on the floor, and I said, "This is the future of performing arts that I'm seeing right here." I don't know if that came true or not, but I wanted to get involved, and I knew a couple people who did acrobatics and circus, and I realized that you can't be in that world without doing those things, so I, took the dial-up internet that I had and sought it out, looked for circus wherever I could find it. And at the time, there were, 2 or 3 places in the US that you could find websites for. And that was it. And that started me on my way. And when I started training, I realized that was very much my kind of community, in a way that theater always felt a little type A for me. Circus felt more like the right fit. Everyone kind of being together, but working quietly on their own thing.
Cool. Thanks so much. Can you tell us a little bit, like, we know how you got into it now, but I want to know what the day to day is like, not the show, but what it takes to put on the show. What does a day in the life look like for all of you?
Nice. I think that's a great question. Our day-to-days change often. Sometimes we don't have anything to do. Those days are very, very, very rare. We are often out in our van, so we operate from our van. We mainly teach, and we work with vulnerable people and people who aren't vulnerable in different parts of the UK as well, of all age ranges and all backgrounds. Like, everybody should have access to the circus. So we bring it to them. So our days look like, when we're working, we drive potentially sometimes up to 4 hours there and 4 hours back. As you can imagine, going through a fuel crisis recently, that was quite costly. But we do a lot of driving to our place, our venue. We unload an entire van's worth of circus, so tight wires, aerial rigs, walking globes, everything that you'd imagine in a circus, and then a lot more sort of niche things that you wouldn't expect to come out of a van. We bring everything that we can get our hands on. Then we might teach for a varied length of time with a varied number of different classes. Sometimes we'll be teaching for 8 hours in a day. Those are usually the summer months, and those are absolutely exhausting. And the content of what we teach depends on where we're at, who we're with, and what we do. But as an example, we've just finished our 3rd project teaching people with visual impairments to fire perform. So if you give that some thought, you can imagine what that experience is like for us and our participants. It's special. It means a lot. Then we have days that are just office days where we are working from home. Part of our company is that we 3D print accessible circus equipment. So some of our days are running a shop, 3D printing. Other parts of our days are doing administrative work, applying for grants. We're doing everything that a very large company would have multiple people employed to do by ourselves, because we are doing that, and we haven't hired enough people to do it for us yet. So that's where we're up to. We live a very, very strange routine, but we make it work for us. And I don't think, and I'm speaking about us. Obviously, there's just me here, but upstairs right now is my life partner, Gina, and she runs a side of the business as well, which is what I've just talked about. So she takes on about half of what I've done, and she teaches everything with me. So she deserves a shout in all of this for sure.
I resonate with all of that. Yeah, it's all over the place. Spinpoint is a one-person organization. I get a lot of emails like, "Oh, can I speak to someone from your team?" And I'm like, "Yes, hello, it is me." So I do all the things, which means the days are all the things. So yep, I don't have like a, like Monday is the office day. Like I'm not. It doesn't work like that, like things just happen as they happen. So I do a mix of sitting right here, staring at my computer, creating resources or answering emails. It's a lot of like what you would call customer service. People have questions. they've ordered something and they're confused about it, or they want to know, they're living somewhere and they're thinking about doing something and what is my advice? Um, that stuff. And then, yeah, I do trainings. So sometimes those are on Zoom, sometimes those are out in the world. Sometimes I travel on an airplane to do them. So that's a whole different thing. Wow, Jamie's making an airplane gesture. That was lovely. um, and then, I in the past couple years have understood I need to take a lot of time for myself. I think when you are running a young business, you literally feel like you can't, even though I'm pretty sure you always can. You just need to make the time. And sometimes it takes time to understand the importance of that, and hopefully you didn't burn out for that point. So I think I just squeaked in and now I take a considerable amount of time for myself, sometimes like a whole day or a half day. People, when there's a holiday, they say like, oh, did you have a break or something? And my breaks just come and go. So I usually don't schedule like I'm off this week. It's like, oh, I worked for 3 hours today and then I went out for a skate, or I, sat under a tree and read, or I played some music for literally the rest of the day. So that's kind of common too. Or I laid in bed feeling depressed about life. That also happens. So yeah, it's all over the place. But it works for me. I actually love it. I love the autonomy, you know, the freedom. I think it would be hard for me to go back to some kind of regular schedule, but I also acknowledge that this kind of thing would not work for everybody. But I found a way that it works well for me.
Just jump in really quick, because what Kate said just inspired me to tell you all. We get to decide when we start working. So as long as we don't have a set class in the morning, we get to wake up and get out of bed whenever we want. It's amazing. We get to lie in every day, most days, some days, a couple of days every now and then. We get to lie in. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I feel like this question has two answers, and I'm going to try to give both of them because I think it's really worthwhile to give both of them. One of them is the pre-COVID answer to this question. So from 2015 until March 2020, I was the head coach at a pretty large school here in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia School of Circus Arts, where we would see some 800 students a week. And being the head coach, my job was both teacher training and curriculum development. So I also got to set my own schedule. I'd set my own schedule quarterly. I'd wake up around 9 or 10. I'd go to work around between noon and 2, do a few hours of admin work, and then start rec classes around 3:30 or 4, and work from 3:30 or 4 until 9, usually 5 days a week, and had 2 days off. I gave myself 2 days off because I was the one in charge of building my schedule. So the fun things about that was I racked up my hours teaching. Teaching all different disciplines of circus to all different sorts of people, from really young kids to older kids, working with teachers who'd been teaching for many years, teachers who were brand new to teaching. It was a really incredible kind of 6-year journey. I got to work with professionals and pre-professionals and teenagers, and bring a very particular set of kind of values and teaching methodology and see how I could spread that out. So I really was working a job. And the best part of that job was I got to set my own schedule. And so it wasn't as all over the place until the quarters, right? Once a quarter, when we changed terms, I got to change my schedule. So if I had any problems, I could change it up. And then COVID happened, and then everything changed. I left the school. I went back to school. So I'm right now getting a research master's, and that means that my days are spent inside in my house, not seeing many people. I'm reading a lot. I do have a bit of a routine, I think. I think I thrive in routine a little bit. Kate was talking about, kind of like this wouldn't be for everyone, and if you're not careful, you can burn out doing this. And I'm on the other side of that, having not caught it in time. I was working too hard, and I was not taking time. And when COVID hit, that was the end of my rope in a lot of ways. And so it prompted a pretty big shift towards taking time and starting to use a part of myself that I hadn't used in a long time. Teaching circus is so physical, and I am so also interested in research and academia and philosophy and pedagogy, and being back in that world for the past couple years has been uh, really great. I spend the morning reading, I spend the afternoon writing and creating teacher training content, and talking in Zoom meetings with other researchers who are interested in what I'm doing and developing those ideas and looking at kind of finishing a research project. Lots of Excel spreadsheets these days. So many Excel spreadsheets.
Class management, right? I just say that I can relate to all of your experiences, and something I might add is like it also changes over time. Like Adam showed us, like you can be there's different ways you can try out the lifestyle, and if it's not working for you, you can find a different kind. I think the flexibility is key. I want to keep moving with the questions, so I'm gonna jump now to the elephant in the room, which we all get asked, I think, more than any other question, which is it possible to support yourself this way? And is there enough industry growth, or do you feel there's enough industry growth to support new players, new people in the industry? Do we have room for more of us? And can you support yourself this way?
Yeah, cool. Short answer, yes. That's it. The advice that I would give for people on this one is something that I've lived my career by, which is make your own work. Go out there and create a need, create a demand, provide the service, and that's what's worked for me. That's what's given me a push. That's what's enabled me to get to the point where our team are out delivering regular sessions multiple days a week and actually getting paid well for it. Is going out and sort of putting our name on a little area of a field and really helping to grow it. But it's being the one to make your own work, I found, as being the point where it stopped being a challenge. There was probably a year and a half where, yes, it was still a challenge, and yes, maybe I needed to pick up other bits of work or do the performance gigs that I didn't want to do. And just focus on the work that I wanted to do. It probably took about a year and a half, but it was really that push of going out there and making the work for yourself.
My answer is maybe you can support yourself. I think so. Spinpoint is a business, right? And like any business, there is a huge difference between being the practitioner and being the person running the business. So like a good example is like somebody loves to bake cookies, and then they're like, wow, maybe I should open a bakery. But then suddenly they're actually not baking cookies anymore. They're like in charge of the finances and hiring the staff and making a viable business. And those are very different skills. And so I think as someone who was a practitioner who then transitioned into running a business, like that can be a tricky transition, and it is a entirely different skill set. So if you're not interested in that skill set, or you don't have the money to hire other people to do that part, it can be very challenging. And I think also a lot of it is about timing. It's about the market. It's a little bit about luck. You need to always, be ready for when that stuff might line up, but it might not always line up. There's some really good ideas that never get off the ground because someone might not have a big enough financial runway, until they're able to succeed. So, yeah, my answer is maybe. I don't mean to be discouraging, but it's not straightforward. It's not like working a 9 to 5 job. Your salary is going to come in and that's what you're doing. It's not that, and it probably never will be that because things just change all the time. So it also depends on how comfortable you are, maybe being poor, how long you can go like that, or where you're drawing your own personal lines of what you can handle.
I think Kate starts to touch on my answer to this question, which is, if we're talking about becoming a circus coach or a social circus practitioner person, I think it requires quite a lot of a financial runway. I think it requires a lot of upfront training that is still not accessible to a lot of folks. You know, how do you become a teacher? Well, you have to have a skill set. How do you get a skill set? Well, you have to have the time and the equipment and the access to people who can help you develop that skill set. You know, I think 20 years ago, you could take some poi in your backyard and teach yourself a whole bunch of tricks, or to set up a trapeze and like catch the one or two DVDs that were floating around in the dance community at the time. In some ways, I think being able to develop skills today is much easier, because of YouTube, because of Instagram, because tutorials are everywhere. The amount of free content that's out there is everywhere. But as we've seen that proliferation of content, we've also seen the kind of like, what shall I call it? The skill entry point to teaching or performing is much higher than it was 10 years ago, is much higher than it was 20 years ago. When I started teaching handstands in 2010, I was living in New York City. I was the only handstand coach in New York City. There were no like circus or acrobatic trained hand balance teachers online at all. And here we are 13 years later. And if you don't have a one arm in multiple positions, you're not a handstand coach anymore, and I see the same thing. I'm a little more peripheral to the juggling community, but I see the same thing like with Diablo specifically is like my example there. I remember when I started training circus, being able to do 2 Diablos was huge. Yeah, like you're the man. You can do 2 Diablos. Now, if you don't do like 5, like who are you? I don't know, And so I wonder, like in a panel where we're talking about accessibility and inclusivity, where, how easy is this as a career path? It's already hard, and the barriers to skill and training and access are only going higher. Do I think that there's demand for it? Absolutely. Do I think there are enough teachers who do it? Absolutely not. Do I think that everyone has the means to acquire the skills and the training that they need to follow this career path? Like, I don't know. I think it's an interesting and kind of tension-filled discussion that if you really start to unpack it, only gets more interesting.
I think like as Jamie was saying about creating the work, I think that's like a key component. So I know like some of us here have created a niche that didn't exist before. So that's like one approach, right? Like maybe you can't do 5 Diablos, but like I'm working with poi as a therapeutic tool, and we basically just like swing it and spin it in a circle. But I've created this niche and the evidence, and the resources and the pedagogy around it. So that's a door that's always open, but of course finding a niche is harder and harder, the more content that's out there.
Yeah, I'd sort of like to amend my answer a bit. I confidently answered yes to the amount of like money that we could make. Now I do still feel this, but this is quite situational. It's situational for myself in this country, in where I'm at in my career. And, there are many other different factors into it. And one of the biggest factors is the fact that I decided that this is the life that I'm comfortable living with, the income that I'm comfortable living with, and that actually for me is fine. But that is not a comparable wage to like a much bigger business that's for profit. Like I'm comfortable and I can live happily with what I have because I love the job that we do so much that I would probably live in far worse situations and still do this job. So right now I'm feeling pretty good because it's paying the bills and, I can get the odd treat now and then. But, that's my situation. So
So obviously it is possible, right? Because we're all doing it somehow. The 4 of us have all found a way to do it, but it's good to be clear with the people who are out there and considering that you have to give a lot and you shouldn't expect so much financial reward. So it's possible to support ourselves, but you're probably doing it for other reasons. Yeah. So on that note, what are some of the job training experiences that you would suggest for anyone who wants to enter these fields? Because you've described a lot of job responsibilities now. You know, I studied English literature and secondary education. That's how I learned about circus. But like maybe if I could go back, I might have studied something else. Or Adam was touching on this just before. Like, there's not a formal pathway in. So I'm a young person. My futures. I want to be part of this world. I want to push social circus as a practice. What should I be trying to do with myself now?
Okay, so I suppose my answer is quite simple, really. It's if you know you want to do circus and you know you want to do social circus, and you have a particular bracket within social circus that you know you want to do. For example, like I want to go out and teach children on an island in Indonesia where they don't even have a school or something like that. Then I would encourage you to find a way to go and without circus, go and get to know that community and work with that community, get to know your participants without even having the thoughts of circus in there. It's go and train to work with the people that you want to work with. I do a lot of work with special educational needs, and I've spent half my life as a carer for people with special educational needs. I would not be as good as what I do now if I hadn't done that. I would not be where I'm at now with circus if I didn't learn to work with the people that I loved and wanted to work with without the guise of circus, because you see things from the angles that you don't see as a circus teacher. And having that background view of being like, I'm able to see this situation from a caregiver's perspective, or I'm able to see this from, one of the other sides that are there that you wouldn't see if you were just teaching circus in there. You can actually provide a much higher quality service for everybody that's fairer for all parties involved in your workshops. Other training and things that's out there. I volunteer for so many things. I do a lot of unpaid work, and until recently, like the majority of the work that I loved was sort of unpaid or paid expenses and things like this. But what you learn from these things, like going out and volunteering with the Flying Seagull Project or Performers Without Borders, places like this, going to work in really challenging situations. These are what shape you as a facilitator. They're what equip you with the feeling of, yes, actually, I can handle pretty much any situation. Like, this might sound terrible, but very often I don't actually get into a classroom with a plan of what I'm going to teach on that day written down, or have even really delicately thought about, because I'm going to go in and I'm going to meet the people that I'm working with and see where they're at that day. And then I know I can rely on everything within my very shiny noggin. I mean, you could almost like advertise on this forehead here. You could put a billboard up. It's just shining in the light right now for anybody who can't see me. But, yes, I got distracted by my own forehead. So
I'll pull you back in. You're giving letting people know like what type of training they should have, and I think you're saying like multidisciplinary, experiential. I did a lot of volunteer work early on with my curiosities, right? But this kind of then goes with what Adam was saying: is you need a lot of financial runway to have the luxury to do that. I would self-fund. I'd work restaurants, construction, and then I'd go into these places and experience and learn. So, thanks.
Yeah,
I did exactly the same thing. I still do, and still encourage people to do that. I mean, I think none of us can give like specific advice, right? Like if you know specifically what you want to do, you'd have to seek out the training. Although, there are social circus trainings like through Quat Props and Spinboy where you can get specific facilitator training. So that there are, things out there, but I think like Craig and Jamie saying this multidisciplinary experiential approach, because you're going to have to be able to do a lot of things potentially. So anything that you can do to grow as a person, you never know how your skill sets might support each other or your work in the future. I was so glad that I had a background doing digital arts and media when I started my PhD, because I was able to do things like make a documentary film about a my clinical trial that I was running. So you kind of never know when one thing is going to support another. So I'd say first and foremost, like if you feel passionate about something, just like try to find a way to do that thing, and that thing may or may not come around in the future, but you'll feel great doing it either way. And that might be through volunteering. Yeah, I still do a lot of that. And the way I handle that now is I set myself a limit of hours per month of stuff that I can either like just give my time to for free, or like, do for free. So that way I don't get overwhelmed with that.
I feel so lucky that I get to go last because I get to think the longest of anyone. So I'm like ready to go. I have 2 or 3 answers. One is, I think the single most valuable thing that someone who wants to teach circus socially or otherwise for a living can do is teach circus summer camps as soon as possible and for as many years as possible. I think that summer camp, because most circus summer camps, at least in the States, run on a really predictable model, right? You're doing all of the disciplines and the kids are going through all the different stations and you're putting together a show. And if you are a junior coach in a summer camp and you're wanting to get started, you will get hours upon hours upon hours teaching all of the basic disciplines to the widest variety of people. It is like the training and testing grounds. Most things I learned about how to teach circus, I learned teaching circus summer camps. The coaches who are in charge of summer camps have so many little tips and tricks, the little ways that you deal with students who are dysregulated, with students who aren't getting a skill, with students who just hate juggling or hate aerials but have to do it anyway. Like all of the little things you learn from people who are more experienced than you teaching in summer camps, and it funds itself. There's the best part about it is that summer camp pay is not much per hour, but is enough to live off of for a summer at pretty much any circus summer camp. So like of the single opportunities, that's the one that affected me the most. It's where I learned how to teach and do all the disciplines that aren't my specialities. The one skill that I wish I had that I just don't have very well, that if you wanted a side skill, is video editing. Man, every day I wish I understood how not the logistics of video editing, but the like art and craft of video editing. How do you put together a video in a way? How do you cut things together in a way that make it interesting and engaging? I don't know any of the basics of that. Obviously I can go in a program like anyone else and like, create a video, but like making a good video, I think is just indispensable these days. And then anything that has nothing to do with circus. I spend so much time reading and crafting and doing things that have nothing to do with circus, and they absolutely circle back and inform my teaching every day.
Really, sorry, I'll let you go. Kate?
Really quickly, do you guys have the same thing as me, that whenever you get a new hobby, it becomes your job within a very short amount of time?
No.
I used to. Now I am like militantly against it within myself. I'm like, no,
Same.
This is a hobby. I'm not going to make this a job. This is a thing I do for fun. Separate.
I think so. For all of our listeners, please do what Adam's done, not what I do, and end up with lots of jobs you are not an expert at, and some that you are, and the ones that you're not an expert at stress you out a lot. Yeah. I
just thought of one more thing to follow up. I taught at circus summer schools, circus camp started by volunteering there and then getting paid. So yes, all about that. But I thought of one more thing. Finding a mentor, when you were talking about the coaches at the summer camps who know more than you. So maybe less than a specific training, but find somebody who's doing something close to what you want to do, or is just like a person you admire. People are usually really happy to share their advice because they went through it and they made all the mistakes, and it feels awesome for them to be like, hey, I'm going to help you out so you don't have to go through all that crap. They're usually happy to share their time and expertise with you because it helps the community at large. So yeah, find some kind of mentor.
That was going to be my follow-up with Adam, is like, because traditional circus too, we have this like apprenticeship model in the old school way, and now with with our industry of social practice, it's more finding mentorships, finding other people in the community who are walking on paths that you would like to walk on, and finding ways to learn from them is really helpful. And then I think the one thing we can all agree on for job training skills is multimedia, because we all have to show ourselves. That's part of our job. So if there's one thing, like Adam too, I agree. If I could have studied video making in college, it would have helped me out a lot now. Or you teach yourself these things. The next question we have is going to be, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced and obstacles you've had to overcome to get to where you are now? Biggest challenges and obstacles.
It's a very tough question, but I think we've probably reflected upon it earlier. It's coming through those early years of deciding what you want to do with your career, or maybe not having fully decided and trying to dip your toes in and out and not feeling like you're quite in either career or the other. Then when you start to fully invest in your one career, realizing you have to take a lot of really the work that you don't want to take within that career to be able to sort of make it work. The feeling of perhaps sacrificing yourself more as a performer or an artist and becoming more as a teacher can be like an internal conflict. Conflicts that I've just mentioned there, again, of having the feeling of all of my hobbies becoming my jobs and not having a personal hobby anymore. And whenever I do, it is immediately used in my workshops as well. It's that constant battle of trying to keep everything in a balance, be that financial or, other mental sort of balances and physical balances as well. That's been my biggest challenge, is to actually, as somebody who teaches equilibristics, trying to find a balance.
Wow, that was nice, Jamie. Yeah, I do feel like maybe we've kind of already touched on it, but I think for me, it's creating something that's financially viable and not compromising at all on my morals and values. Like, there's lots of ways that I could make money, and I don't want to do them. So that puts me in a little bit of like a tricky space. How do you follow your heart while also, I need the thing I'm doing to be financially viable because that enables me to do more things and that enables it to grow. So ultimately that is important, but I don't want to compromise and I don't know, sell out or something. That's it's not that, but do things that I don't feel comfortable with. And also maybe just like being comfortable being kind of uprooted and not grounded. That's a challenge for me. I'm very organized. I like things to be structured. I like to know what's going on. I'm not a risk taker. So I've had to get really comfortable just with the uncertainty, because the nature of this is all very uncertain. But I think maybe other people would struggle less with that. Depends on your personality.
No, I know, Kate, we've had long conversations about this topic. It's just like, because we're pioneering so much too and opening doors, I feel like we have to reflect on it more. It's like, okay, I'm opening these doors. Are these the doors I should be opening for other people? Or maybe these are not the right doors. So I feel you on that one.
I don't know. This one's been throwing me. I had all this time to think, and I still don't have a nice quip ready for you. I think that the thing that strikes me is that this work takes so much work. The thing that has challenged me the most is that I was most successful when I was not living sustainably. The amount of work it took to make the amount of money that I was comfortable making, and also, like, try to have a kind of value-centric business or teaching practice, and also navigate communities and navigate the people, and also do volunteer work. It's just so much. It's just so much. And it's not, I never found a way to do the work that made me happy, make the money I needed to make, and do it in a sustainable way. I could have 2 out of those 3 things, but never all three, you know? It's either unsustainable or it's sustainable and missing something. And I don't say that to be a downer. I say that because I think, Jamie was talking about that as a balancing act. And, the nature of balance isn't that you like find the spot and sit in it. The nature of balance is that you're always frickin' falling one way or another until the fall becomes unmanageable, And which one of those three things is going to be the reason that you tip off the wire at a different point? Whoa, man, that's the challenging thing, I think, for me about this life. I think it would be less challenging for me personally if other people always did exactly what I wanted or expected them to do. And they don't. They just don't. Other people behave unpredictably and sometimes hold different values than you hold, and sometimes behave in their own best interest, and sometimes don't behave in their own best interest. And it's utterly unpredictable, like this field is not filled with predictable people. This field is full of really unpredictable people with unpredictable personalities. And some of the work that I've done that I'm proudest of is work that I never got paid for, and is work that just took huge emotional and psychic tolls on me, and it is still the work I'm proudest of, and I would still do it all again. But it's so much work.
I think this is getting pretty good. This career days is really turning out like how I had hoped for. Just honesty. What is it really like? And it's hard. We've understood now through this conversation. It's hard. You can make it work, but it has its rewards. It's a choice. It's a lifestyle, and we do it. We are running out of time, so I think I want to drop the last question, leave us on more of a positive note, and if we can do more quick summary reactions of how we can look to the future. So we're all resource starved, and we're all trying to make the most out of everything that we have here. So imagine if for the next 5 years you had an unlimited amount of resource for the next 5 years only. In what ways would you apply that opportunity to make the biggest impact, the biggest change for yourself or the community?
Okay, quick fire time. He's going to get a quick fire answer. I would probably dedicate all 5 years and of the majority of the funding of sort of just looking at myself, not what a larger team could do, but myself and Gina delivering work, all at one school where we used multiple different resources to track a whole range of developmental capacities in the students over a 5-year basis, using a control group to compare against, so that we could actually sort of start looking at the longer term benefits as well as the shorter term benefits of what we do, but in a comprehensive study. I think that something like that is peer reviewed would be wonderful for the world of social circus. Go, somebody else. Kate.
I think I would probably do what I do now, but on a much larger scale, which was train practitioners outside of the circus community to work with circus as a legitimate therapeutic tool, so that circus arts can kind of gain that clout and be integrated into mainstream society, because I think they're so accessible and beneficial. So I'd probably put those resources into training from the top down to get like much larger organizations on board with utilizing circus as a tool to improve health and well-being for all ages and abilities. Okay, go.
Craig, you said unlimited resources, and so I am going to use my imagination there. I would use unlimited resources to remake American public education from the ground up. I would pay teachers in every subject way more than they're currently making. I would pay public school administrators way more than they're currently making. I would take every public school facility and I would revamp it entirely. I would train physical education teachers and dance teachers in actual like what we know about how people move today. Like we have from research and human knowledge, like so many practices and so many improvements upon education that are just not implemented. The gap between knowledge and implementation when it comes to both motor skill learning and personhood well-being and personhood development, the gap there is huge. And the institutional entrenchment is huge. And the fastest way to overcome institutional entrenchment is with money, is to say, if you want this money, then make these changes. That is how change happens, at least in the States, right? And it's an unrealistic dream, but I think that you said unlimited resource. And so when someone says unlimited resource, I'm like, well, let's think big. Let's change public education, period. Let's redo the whole thing, right?
And I think that's all kind of how we're using Circus in generally. It's about something much bigger. I don't think we touched so much in this conversation on the sort of why and inspirational reasons why we're here. We got more down and dirty. But we all believe in something, and it's change. It's a type of change that makes the world a more equal place and brings us all together. And that's why we're doing these jobs, right? So I love all of your dreams, all of your visions. I want to thank everyone for coming. I think we could go a lot longer. And I hope that the people listening or watching, that you can follow the links in the description below the post to find out more about Jamie, Kate, or Adam. As we said, mentorship is important. So if you're out there and you're considering these roles in the community, reach out to us. We want to help, and we want your help. So to finish the podcast, if you do not already have a Circus Talk profile, I invite you to create one for free and take advantage of the newest profile fields that make you stand out in talent searches. By upgrading to Pro, talents have access to job and career development content. Circus Talks Pro casted membership allows talent seekers to access the fastest growing circus and multidisciplinary talent database in the world. So thank you very much, Circus Talk, for continuing to show interest in our community, for creating this platform for us to share. And we will see you all next time.
Thank you.